Sailing around the world really is about seeing beautiful places and exotic locations. But it also means one needs to be on top of weather, because weather can turn quickly. A calm anchorage with lots of boats can suddenly become dangerous when a storm cell passes by. The Gulf Stream can be very rough, and it certainly can take a few days to calm down after a northeaster. And one doesn't want to be out in weather like this, where it can be downright dangerous. Sailors always have to be on the watch for these. Hurricanes can happen off-season, and more with global warming in unexpected places.
Hurricane Nomad just pulled the mast over on a boat.
One can't always safely shelter in port, as seen in 2018 in Saint Martin after Hurricane Irma. Watching the weather and planning ahead for bad weather is an important part of living on a sailboat. In this video, we're going to be talking about weather and communications, because getting weather at sea is essential for any blue water passage, and having a backup to your primary system is also important. Welcome to BioTrek Sailing. We're going to be talking a little bit about weather today. Just generally chatting about weather, and then talking a little bit about the weather routing service that we use and why we use it.
The first crossing I ever did in 1990, I went overboard with spares, which of course spares are available everywhere now, especially with internet communication. But so we've reduced on the spares a lot now in the newer boats that we've had. But weather, I studied and I really tried to optimize everything. At that time, satellite communication wasn't as advanced as it is today, so I was using a single sideband with a backdoor modem, and it's just like, and all you have to do is just go on the right set of frequencies and go to the modem, receive it on the computer, and then look at it on the screen or print it. I mean, it takes hours. And then of course you're tired, and you're not the best person to be able to make the decision. So the way we work now, we have one of those little Iridium Glow that we have, but I mean it's very similar. So that allows to automate that part where the system, the software on board can go in and retrieve the data on a grid file, compressed, comes in, you don't have to worry about it, and then the navigation software will decompile that grid file and show it to you on the screen. So you're able to make, and some of these software, like the one we have on the boat, will even do some routing for you once you receive the grid file. So this is all very, very nice. But that again,
and that's done by satellite.
Yes,
the Glow is a satellite.
Yeah, but you know, my message here would be just how much burden do you want to put on yourself? Can it be done by if it's a nice, easy trip, you know, just a few hundred miles? Sure. But if you're going for a long passage, we find it so much easier to use a router. We find a professional routing service that are routing cruise ships, you know, or cargo ships and other racers around the world. Actually works really, really well.
Chalk it up for a long passage, like give up one of your dinners in a fancy restaurant and you've paid for your weather. I think it's well worth it.
And I'll do it in parallel with what we're doing on the boat, so I'm always able to double check. There are different packages you can have, of course. Very often we've done just a minimum routing request before a trip. So okay, now when is the best time to depart, and what are the waypoints we should have for the next week? And they are amazingly accurate.
We use Commanders as our weather router, and we had a chance to visit them when we drove up to New Hampshire in the summer.
Hi, I'm Ken Campbell, President and owner of Commanders Weather. This is our office. We've got various workstations. We've got Chris over here to my left, who's
Hi.
one of the forecasters. And we've got Bryn off to my right, which is my wife and also a forecaster. So I've been doing this for 41 years now, as of August 1st. This time of the year, with no tropicals down there, it's not a bad crossing.
Yeah.
You can see there's a huge high out here in the middle of the Atlantic. Once we get into the fall, that's not going to be the case. There's going to be lows and there's going to be fronts in here, and that high is going to be coming and going, and the trade winds become much more transient, less stable. Once we get into January, it all changes again, and that high becomes very strong out there. And that's why I end up with the Christmas trade winds down in the Caribbean, and the crossings in January are generally a lot easier than they are in November and December.
Yeah.
We have all the clients broken up into various regions around the world, and each client that's at sea has their own map, and we will go in each day and check their position along the route, see how they're doing, and then check them versus the weather. One of the storms that I remember, I think it was the late 80s or early 90s, and the QEII had just come from Europe for their winter, Thanksgiving and winter cruising season down in the Bahamas. And when they were coming across the North Atlantic, they come great circles. So they're up where the Titanic was. There had been a hurricane that had turned extratropical, was racing across the North Atlantic, north of Newfoundland. And they knew that it was coming. They had everybody in their bunks. Anyways, the wave hit at night. And the captain told me it was like the bloody Straits of Dover coming at it. And the bridge was 100 feet above normal water line. The wave hit the bridge window.
We've used the same router for the
Years.
last 15 years, so they know you and they know your boat and your tolerance for bad weather. They know the speed of your boat. You have predictions of where you're supposed to be the next day at a certain time, and so the weather rolls with you. For example, when we were in the Northern Pacific in hurricane season, that was in Asia, that was really useful because we were trying to dart between two locations between hurricanes. And so just having a weather router gave you the comfort that you were not going to make a mistake and end up in some atrocious weather.
Well, yeah, the other aspect of it is that gives you one person on shore, which has a staff, not to be tired, with the competence to be able to look at several sources which are very often not available to us on the boat. You know exactly the name of the boat and who's on it and everything else. Doesn't matter who's on shift at the time. And if something happens in this part of the world, they will contact you. When we left Palau to go to the Philippines, and we ended up going in between two hurricanes, and the one behind us, you know,
Was going fast.
became a real major hurricane that destroyed Manila that year. So sure enough, as soon as we left, exactly on time when the router told us to leave, an hour or 2 hours after that, we were at sea, and the phone rang, which had never happened to us on the boat. There's a satellite phone rang, and sure enough, it was the router calling, "Have you left yet? Because if you haven't, turn around, go hide." So that's another level of security, which is really worth it.
Well, which brings another subject. It's not only your tolerance for bad weather, but think about your guests. So we've had guests on board and we've told them, sorry, we're staying at the dock. And it's not that we wouldn't go out, but they're not sailors. And what's the point of going out if you think everybody's going to be seasick? They'll have more fun going to the bar at the restaurant at the dock rather than being seasick at sea. So
Also, the boat is able to take an awful lot more than us. How many times have we heard of a person calling mayday, 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 getting the rescue involved, crucial, a cargo ship stopping by to pick them up, or having an helicopter come over to pick them up, and about a month later, find the boat completely intact on the shore somewhere. Months after that person had abandoned the boat in dear distress. So this should not happen.
some of the rallies want you to have two forms of satellite communication. So again, the backup. So we have a little system called InReach, and again, I'll put the link below, which is just a text-based satellite system, very inexpensive. And so it's a backup to the regular, telephone satellite communication, just in case. And so that's, it's actually a system that a lot of hikers will use in remote areas.
You can always go overboard with these things, and everything, of course, has a dollar sign attached to it, and also has a maintenance attached to it. Battery life
And getting to know how it works attached to it.
Subscription and cost per minute, and depending on the plan you have, it can get pretty complex and pretty expensive quickly. So as I mentioned, on our boat we have the Glow system, which is very similar to Iridium Glow, which is a very simple system on a set monthly cost with a US phone number attached to it, and basically unlimited data. But it's slow speed. It's good to get weather files and small emails, but you usually wouldn't want to be surfing the web with it. But if we want a second means of communication and better than just the InReach that you mentioned, what I've done in the past is if we have the long passage, I'll ask one of the crew to rent a cell phone or a satellite phone, portable for the crossing. We take the batteries off, make it sure they're fully charged, and we put that in a Faraday bag, and we store it in the boat so that it doesn't matter what happened, it's there for safety, like a spare GPS. So that's one of our backups. Oh,
and I guess, we are backups, but Pierre mentioned the Faraday bag,
And I mentioned on a previous video that we always put our electronics in the microwave when there's lightning around. And one of our viewers had said, well, what about Faraday bags? And lo and behold, yes, you can just buy some really great Faraday bags, just little envelopes on Amazon. Yeah, so we do have some of those, and some of the electronics that we don't use on a regular basis, we just keep them in the Faraday bag. So make sure they don't get zapped if our boat ever happens to get hit.
And if you want to know more about how we protect from lightning, check out our episode 54. And if you want to see some spectacular lightning at sea, check out our episode 49. I hope you enjoyed this video on weather, and if you appreciate it, please subscribe and ring that notification bell. We'll look forward to seeing you next time.